All right. So, hello everyone. My name is Alexi Mercado, and I'm so glad to see a number of our partners from India who are here today. I see a lot of familiar names. So, thank you so much for joining us today for this important information session, which I think would be very interesting for you since all of our organizations here are also in the thick of fundraising and reaching out to their donors in the United States. So, welcome. So, before we get into our webinar proper, we will just have some reminders on the Myriad USA side, and then I will turn it over to our speaker today. So, let's start with that. Okay. So for our program today, I will just start off with some housekeeping and reminders. So for our webinar today, we are using the webinar setup of Zoom. So you will see here that there is a Q&A function, and this is where you can type in your questions, and we will be having some time later after the presentation for us to answer the questions. But please don't hesitate to type in as you listen in to our content, and so that we can already begin answering those questions as they come along. And then, as you would know, in a webinar, we would be having a recording available. So if you registered, we will be able to share a link with you for you to download the recording. And then lastly, only if it's available to you, it will also be helpful for us if you could rename yourselves to include your organization name along with your name, just so that we have reference on the represented organizations that are attending our webinar today. All right. So on to some reminders. I just wanted to remind our partners here of some links and contact information. So, as you know, if you have any questions about your American Friends Funds at Myriad USA, you can always reach out to me or to Lee Tran, who is our director of the region. So, if you have any questions about our process or about the American Friends Fund service, please feel free to email us. And then if you have any questions about donations or if you need technical support for your fund portal, which you should have access to already, please email support@myriadusa.org. Our team will be able to address any of the concerns that you may have. And then every.org, as you know, is our partner for donation pages. And they are also very supportive and responsive in any questions you may have regarding your donation page, especially on the technical aspect. So please feel free to also email their team if you have specific questions on your donation page. And then lastly, there is a link here to access the various portals that you should have access to under the Myriad USA partnership. So that brings me to the next slide. So just to let you know, and of course, you can email me if you have any questions and specifically. We have 3 portals that you should have access to. And if you don't have access to any of these portals, please let me know. So the first one is your fund portal, where you can see information about your fund, see contributions, grants, and the available balance after receiving donations. This is where you can view that through your fund portal. And if you are fully registered and have full access to this, you should also be able to receive automatic emails from our system whenever a donation comes in or when your monthly fund statement is available. Then second is our grants portal. Some of you may have interacted with this already because you have requested for fund release. So this is a separate portal that you will have access to whenever you request for your funds. And then lastly, your online giving portal, which is hosted by every.org, you should have access to this as well. And you have full management of that page in order for you to make changes, update your information or your images, or create fundraisers. So this is a separate access as well. And I'm sure after this webinar, you would like to make those changes or study how you could optimize that donation page, which is hosted by every.org. So again, if you have any questions about these portals or if you have some issues in the access, please feel free to email me and happy to help. So I now turn over to Lee, who will be introducing our speaker today.
Thank you, Alexi. Well, very welcome everyone to our first webinar of 2025. Can't believe 2025 is already here upon us, and we're very excited to open this series up with these exciting opportunities. But I just want to emphasize that, Myriad USA, as many of you have been working with us for many years, we are a fund facilitator. And I know many people come up to us asking, can you help us with fundraising? No, we do not do fundraising for our partners. It's very clear. However, we are constantly reaching out and finding opportunities to support our partners, whether it's capacity building, whether it's spotlighting some of your amazing work on our social medias and in relevant global and regional events. Some of you have been part of those opportunities. And this is one of those opportunities that we're very excited to bring to you over this webinar. I'm going to keep it very short to introduce Alex and keep it for him to introduce himself. But I just want to emphasize that Alex is a man who wears many hats. He's an established author with a number of books that are providing insights for business and nonprofit leaders. He's also was the president and CEO of American India Foundation, AIF. Many of you are familiar with it in 2016 and 2017. Alex is also an independent consultant to nonprofit organizations. I leave his personal website down here for those organizations who find his insights and knowledge useful and relevant. You can reach out, you can read the full profile there. Last but not least, Alex is also a adjunct professor at the School of Advanced International Studies at Johns Hopkins University. Now, with that, and with no further delay, I just want to pass on the mic to Alex, and please go ahead and share your relevant experience and all the insights that our partners are excited to hear about, the opportunities that might be opened up to our American Friends Funds partners who are fiscally sponsored by Myriad USA to tap into these tax-deductible giving opportunities from US donors, right? Many of those opportunities that are off the limit for international organizations like our partners without the 501c3, which Alex share in the link here, which is a great opportunity, but is definitely not an option for many of the partners that are on the calls today. So Alex, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I've been working with Lee and Alexi on a project actually related to Bangladesh, but I spend a lot of my time related to India, and my work as the executive director of the India Philanthropy Alliance. And I think it's inevitable that we began talking about this kind of a partnership, and working with them has been an absolute pleasure. Really, really love it, and I appreciate you pulling this together. I have a long history of involvement going back 37 years when I started in South Asia, India and Bangladesh. I've lived in Bangladesh for 6 years, beginning as a Fulbright scholar in 1988, 37 years ago, if I'm doing my math right. I speak Bengali. In fact, I just actually gave a 15-minute speech in Bengali just about 10 days ago. It wasn't the easiest thing I've ever done, but it worked out okay. And I can share with you the link to that if you're interested. A book that I wrote was launched, and there was a Bangladesh edition of it. I want to say that without knowing a lot about each of your organizations, I just really admire your missions, what you're trying to do for India. And I wish we had time. I could sit down with each of you and learn specifically about what you've done, what you're learning, what you're planning, your capacity, your team, and maybe at some point I will. I'm going to be talking about India Giving Day as an opportunity for you to energize your fundraising this year and potentially broader partnerships in future years. And I'm going to talk for, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes and then just take hopefully a lot of questions from you about how you can be involved. And hopefully we'll hear from some of you afterwards as well, and people that perhaps listen to this recording. First of all, just the origins of IPA, the India Philanthropy Alliance. So when I was running the American India Foundation, which it sounds like some of you are familiar with, it's a pretty well-known organization. I thought AIF was a great organization. I still do. I felt that, but one of the things I noticed was that when I came into the role, I said, who are the organizations that are similar to us, that are trying to create a more just and a better India? And people mentioned a few organizations. I said, well, what are we doing to collaborate with them? And they said, well, really nothing. Well, what are we doing to coordinate with them so we don't step on their toes? Nothing. What do we communicate with them? Do we just pick up the phone every few months and just say, hi, how you doing? Pratham, Akshaya Patra, Magic Bus, Dasra, whatever. I said, not really. Not people in your role have not tended to do that. And I said, this is a bit crazy. These are our natural allies. And as I probe deeper, there was almost an attitude that these are our competitors, not our allies. And I said, and so I said, okay, well, that's what I'm walking into. That's fine. And I started to think, what if we put together a leadership roundtable for the heads of these organizations, their U.S. Legal entities, just to get to know each other, to see if there might be some collaborative work we could do together, to make sure, this is a real example, to make sure two of our organizations don't schedule major gala events in Boston on the same night, so that people in the town who usually want to go to both had to choose. Like just that coordination, very, very basic. So people said, a good idea. Weren't terrifically enthusiastic, but saw some value. But I just saw, and actually, ultimately, I relinquished the CEO role at AIF. I gave it to my India country director, Nishant Pandey, who's done fantastic. And I started to work on building what we now call India Philanthropy Alliance to drive more communication, coordination, and collaboration among Indian nonprofits that have a legal presence in the U.S. And then one of the things that really, as you know, we hold annual retreats. We have monthly Zoom calls, other things as well I won't go into. And one of the things that just is every single organization needed and wanted more money. They had more capacity to do good than they had resources to do good. And the way they thought about it mentally was, there's a fixed amount of money in the U.S. for programs in India, and I want to get a bigger slice of a fixed pie. So probably the way to do it is to take away the donors of our competitor allies who are working on similar issues. And I said, listen, that's also kind of crazy, because there's potential to have a much bigger pie, and then we can work together to bake that pie. And then each of us, a bigger pie yields more slices for more people. And so I've been trying to really grow that philanthropic culture. One of the things, one of our members did a survey in 2018, and they found that Indian Americans volunteer at almost double the rate of Americans. So they volunteer typically 220 hours a year. Americans on average volunteer 120, so almost double. So people, obviously this community cares. They want to do good for India, for their communities in the US, but they give money at 1/3 the rate of Americans in general. So they're a little skeptical of putting money. They'll put their time, but they didn't necessarily put their money. Now I look at that as there's a huge growth potential here. That Indian Americans in 2018, we estimated, give about $1 billion to charity. If they gave at the rate of Americans in general, that would be $3 billion. That would be like adding a second Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation just focused on India, if we could realize that. So that became a motivating force. How do we wake up the sleeping giant of American philanthropy, which is the Indian American? And so we have various things we try to do that. But one of the ideas is, we said there's a phenomenon in the US about 15 years old called Giving Days. A lot of Giving Days happen in some of the medium to large size cities like Miami and Dallas. They happen in some of the smaller states like Idaho, and they're done also by in universities have Giving Days, which function a little differently, but it's the same basic concept. And you try to get everyone to give on a given day, but you give kind of a week or two of early giving, you have matching funds, you make it enjoyable, you make it youth friendly, et cetera, et cetera. And I was trying to develop this idea, but one of the people that joined our board had been part of a giving day in Dallas, Texas. And when it started, they had 80 nonprofits, 80 nonprofits that raised in the first year about $4 million. Now they raised more money the rest of the year, but that became they made a big push. Well, fast forward about 12 years when this woman joined our board and left the community foundation in Dallas. By that point, 3,200 organizations were part of North Texas Giving Day, and they were raising $80 million. So from 4 million to 80 million. So it really did grow overall philanthropy in the Dallas area. There's no question about that. And so we said, why don't we try to adapt that, but for a national campaign focused on India? And so we launched it in 2023. We raised $1.4 million for 25 organizations, a good start. We kind of learned how to do it, learned the mechanics of it. We asked organizations, including ones not on our board, to apply to be part of it, so we could kind of vet them and assure people that these are organizations that are, well respected and well run. And they were eligible for about $125,000 in matching funds from one of our big donors. And so they could be listed on our website, and people could give to them via our website, indiagivingday.org. And then we did it a second year, and it grew about 4 times. So we raised about $5.5 million for 33 organizations. But what also happened is, and this is important for you, is that several organizations started what we call their own independent campaigns. They were trying to raise money around India Giving Day, but they weren't listed on our website for whatever reason. They just didn't choose to do that. They missed the deadline, whatever. They didn't want to pay the fees that have to be paid to be involved in this. Ekal Vidyalaya, which you probably have heard of, is one of those organizations. And that's an opportunity for you this year. I'll get back to that. But and our overall, what we're trying to do here, and this is why we really hope that you'll do something, even if it's small, this year around March 14th and the 2 weeks leading up to that. We're really trying to create a movement to grow the amount of American philanthropy going to India, the impact or the quality of the amount of private philanthropy going from the U.S. to India, and the joyfulness of the givers of that. Some philanthropy, in not only among Indian Americans, is done kind of transactionally. Okay, I'll give $100, but what do I get back? Now, I think that's fine. I just think it's a kind of a lower form of philanthropy than really giving out of a sense of joy, out of a sense of, I want to change society. I want to join a group of people who are committed to the same things I am. So we're trying to qualitatively change giving, both in the impact and in why people give, and also increase the amount. So that's what India Giving Day is trying to do over the coming years. And so there are 36 organizations that are going to be listed on our website. They applied in October and they were confirmed in November. And they all have U.S. legal entities. But I would encourage you all to run your own independent campaign, just like many, many, many thousands of organizations around the world that have a mission related to women try to raise money around International Women's Day. Makes a lot of sense. And they do it on their own. There's no one controlling that. Well, in that same way, if you're trying to raise money for your good work in India, have a mini campaign in early March from March 1 to 14, or from mid-February to whatever the only thing we ask is, if you raise money using our logo and our brand, avoid 3 things. Avoid bringing politics into it in any kind of weird way that would make people uncomfortable. Indian politics, US politics, whatever. Avoid bringing religion into it. We're not opposed to religion. It's just that has a different place. So don't do anything around religion that would make anyone feel uncomfortable because they have a different set of beliefs, or they just don't believe in any religion. And don't badmouth any nonprofit anywhere, even if they deserve it. And some do, but this isn't we want to stay positive. If you can abide by those 3, you have our permission to use our logo, to say we're part of India Giving Day. We're trying to raise money for our mission. Knock yourself out and take some pictures and send them to us so we can put it in our report to our stakeholders. And then maybe next year, we may relax the requirement that organizations listed on our website have legal status in the U.S. Because if they can have that effectively through Myriad USA, maybe that's enough. Maybe we need to become more inclusive, and by having some of you organize your own successful, even if small, independent campaigns, that would be one of the arguments for broadening our eligibility criteria. I'll say one thing, and then I want to get specifics about what you can do. You'll see in the chat, I put an article here that was in the India Development Review about how to set up a legal entity in the US. If you read that article, it's actually kind of an argument for not doing it because I said it takes a lot. And there are quite a number of organizations, they probably don't advertise this, that have set up a legal entity in the US and they haven't really done anything with it. It's just been a cost with no benefit. And so in that article, I said, if you want to do this, you got to do it seriously. You got to invest a lot of money and time, and it may not be worth it. And so I think most people that have read that article have said, oh boy, I didn't realize there was so much to do. Maybe I should partner with someone like Myriad USA. And so it's really an endorsement for doing what you're doing. Now, if you want to start a legal entity, there's some guidelines of what it takes, but it's more than most people think. And you're actually in a really good spot the way you're doing it now. So what would I encourage you to do before we take questions? First of all, create a little fundraising campaign in the first half of March and use the hashtag India Giving Day and study our online presence in Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn also. And then just kind of, we're part of this because I tell you, you all are part of it. You don't need any more permission. You're getting it from me. And you're part of our movement if you want to be. So organize things, drive people in the US to raise money in India, fine, but this is really a US-based thing, but you can take it wherever you want. I just got interest actually in bringing India Giving Day to the UK, but that's probably a year or two in the future. But fundraise wherever you want to fundraise using this as as an impetus. And this is very important. So organize an event in the US. Have some of your friends in the US organize a small event. And we actually have a grant facility. We can provide grants of $500 to people who want to organize kind of small to medium events, 10 to 50 people who can gather, and maybe they have a link to you and what you're doing in India. Maybe you set up a Zoom link on the March 13 or 14. Maybe they just organize a dinner party in some town where you have some donors, and they talk about philanthropy to India in general. They talk about the good work of your organization. They view a video that you've put on your website and discuss it. And again, as long as it's, we don't want to necessarily, if you have two couples that are friends that like you, and I don't want to necessarily go and pay for them to go out to dinner. But if it's bigger than that, if it's really a convening around philanthropy and people, it doesn't have to be very formal or structured. You could just, get 12 people in Tulsa, Oklahoma, 2 of which know your organization well, and have a dinner and go around the table and everyone talk about what they've learned and what they're passionate about philanthropically, and start or end with a video about your organization. You want to do that? Send us a proposal. We'll send you $500. And if you want to do something bigger, we have some grants that are larger than that, but there's not a lot of time to schedule a larger event. But if you're up for it, we're all ears. We have set some money aside. And this thing in the chat, which is this call for proposals. And if you have a question about it, contact me. Meenakshi Majan, a colleague of mine, is kind of overseeing this. And if you get in touch with me, I'll probably put her in touch with you because she's just knows what's going on. Putting my email address in the and so also we have one thing, just a simple thing you could do is sign up for our mailing list, because we send out things every 2 months, just what's going on in IPA that you could plug into. By the way, one of the things we do is we have a youth essay competition every year where we have young people in the US who want to write about what excites them about American philanthropy to India. And you can share that with people in the US. We had more than 100 essays submitted this year, and we have all sorts of fun benefits for the top essay writers. But you'll hear about what's going on. Also, we have a listserv of which the organizations that are listed on our website, that are part of the core part of the India Giving Day movement. If you would like to just see what it's like to be part of that, to be listed on our website, and all that, now some of the things you may read aren't applicable to you because you're not on our website. If you want to join our listserv just to get a sense of what's going on, send me your email address. I'll put you on the listserv. We have some people on the listserv who aren't part of listed organizations just because they want to track what's going on. We have a Sunday night, the May 9th, the Sunday night before India Giving Day. We have a kind of internal stakeholder kickoff where we last year we hired a comedian, an Indian American comedian who kept us all laughing, but we also talked about just what was happening in the week ahead. And you would be if you're on the listserv, you'll be automatically invited, but you're my guest to come join that. It's you see what's going on, and we'll give you a chance to talk about your independent campaign if you'd like. We do have a kind of an open sharing session and we have a public webinar coming up on May 6th, where the head of the MacArthur Foundation is one of our big backers, John Palfrey, is going to be talking about philanthropy in general, and especially philanthropy to India. He's going to be joined by one of my favorite people anywhere, Ingrid Srinath, formerly of Ashoka University in India, one of the real philanthropic thought leaders in India and in the world. And so sign up for that May 6th webinar. You'll see it on our social media fairly soon. It's a big event that we're doing. And just one other thing that I'll put here. We're trying to understand Indian American philanthropists better, understand their preferences, understand their motivations, understand what they would like to see in order to give more. So we're doing a survey on SurveyMonkey. It's actually it's a repeat of the survey we did in 2018, which said that volunteerism was very high, but donations were kind of low among the Indian Americans. If you have Indian American people on your mailing list that that are your donors or friends, if you could just send them this survey, it takes 15 minutes to fill out. We don't quite have enough surveys yet to make a valid analysis and to publish the results. It's all anonymous. It's just we want people to just see what people are thinking and doing. And so I'll put that in the chat in a moment, but you could help us with that. And those are really the main things I'd like to share with you. Again, I'm welcome to take questions. If you have a suggestion or an idea, we may not have thought of it. It might be better than our current plan, so we'll just incorporate it. We're still in the early stages of this. When India Giving Day is like 20 years old, we'll probably be like totally bureaucratic and like, oh no, we don't do things that way. But right now, we're still making it up. And so ask your questions, contribute your ideas, and hopefully, we can involve you. Hopefully, you can help us build this movement. So with that, I just in real gratitude to Myriad USA. And to all of you for the good work you're doing. And I hope you can find some way to be part of India Giving Day, even if it's in a small way this year, that can help us build this movement. Because if we can grow Indian American philanthropy from $1 billion to $3 billion, not all of it will go to India, not all of it will happen this year, but that's a lot of money. And the work that you do, my guess is it needs more money, and we'd like to create that. My cat is going to jump onto my lap, so just if you'll see this, this happens sometimes, and so don't be concerned about that. Here's my cat. It's hard to see, but this is my cat. So this is Mina. Mina, by the way, my wife named it. Back in the 90s, there was a campaign, UNICEF and others, to kind of value the girl child. I think it was probably done in India as well by UNICEF, and they named this cartoon character Mina, like a kind of a girl who was interested in her education. And so we named our cat Mina. I don't know where Emily remembered that from, but it's so I always think of that era whenever Mina jumps into my lap. So anyway, let me open it up. Thank you so much for your interest and attention.
Well, Alex, thank you so much for your sharing. And again, thank you for that generous offer for our partners to either use your logo, tag along, but also to apply for some small financial support as well if they want to do fundraising in the US, as you mentioned. That's really generous of you, given that we just approached you recently. But I think I would like to just add a few things into what you were saying. A lot of that resonate with what we are hearing and hoping for in terms of opportunities as well, but probably more of a message to our partners. that, I've been always telling people and partners that just share the words of your good work out as wide and as broad as possible. You never know who are your next donors, right? They might just be sitting right next to you at an Indian wedding of your cousin. So to Alex's point, I would really love to encourage the group sitting here and everyone else within our network to leverage this opportunity. And even if you don't have, and don't be persuaded by having to organize something in the US, because I know many of our partners don't have that direct network there. But don't forget, you have, people who are expats living in India. You have multinational companies who have operation and offices in India. You might be working with them with their local CSR team, yet they have funds and support in the US, where that's where Myriad can come in and support to facilitate that funding. So I love that idea, Alex, of just really take on this campaign, right? Leverage riding that wave, and you can promote it to your donors in India as well.
Yes.
Because again, you never know. Some global family offices, some high net worth individuals you are working with, they've been supporting you from India, but they also might have funds in the US. So that's one thing. Just bring the word out, spread the word as far and wide as you can. I also just want to remind that we also have an office in central Manhattan in the US, in New York. So if any of you would like to leverage our office to have have a small gathering of your supporters, of your donors, to leverage this opportunity, or in general for your fundraising, we offer that for free to all of our partners. Of course, you have to let us know. We have to book the office. It has limited space, but it's a very convenient location. So just to echo on Alex's point, if you want to gather a small donor, have a conversation, you don't need to make it big. It can be casual and happen anytime. We have that resource for you. So just want to add to that.
Good. You've reminded me of a couple other things, but let's see if there are questions and things
Right. I do see
comments.
a couple of questions in our Q&A box, and I invite our participants to continue typing in their questions. So first, from Gunj, Nidhi mentioned that she's based in UK and would be keen to explore possibilities of India Giving Day in the UK. So, Alex, do you have any experience there? Or does this happen also in the UK?
Yeah. And I'm a big fan of the Gunj Foundation, by the way. Anshu Gupta is like this kind of cross between Gandhi and Buddha, and I don't know, he's amazing. And by the way, I just say I had a discussion literally yesterday. Okay, Mina, that's it for now. I had a discussion with someone from the British Asian Trust, which was started by you're probably familiar with it. I wasn't. I was kind of familiar with it. And so they're interested in starting an India Giving Day in the US, in the UK, but it's probably going to take a year or two if they do that. And we're willing to give full support. They might invite me to come out there and give some talks about some of the books that I've written and about India Giving Day and help set them up to do that. But I think that's still some, ways off. I can, but if you contact me, I see, let me make a notation here. Well, I don't know. Let me see if I can. Maybe you can email me separately, and I can just make sure to keep you updated on that. But it'll probably be kind of happen slowly. There's some groups that we work with that are already in the UK pretty significantly. Magic Bus, for example, is one of them. But that's really for people there to organize. We don't want to have to control that or manage that. We've got our hands full in the US. The other thing, I saw the second question. The logo that we'll give you access to is not the one from American India Foundation, although you can ask them for it. You can see if you want to collaborate with AIF. I used to run it. It's a quite open organization to partnerships. But the logo that I'm talking about is the India Giving Day, the one that you see behind me. and again, we have logo, hashtag, all that. If you go to our website, there's a whole kind of place where you'll find different digital assets that you can use. Again, as long as you don't violate those three common sense, things that I talked about earlier. Let me just mention a couple other things quickly. I organize one of my visions is that many of the organizations involved in India Giving Day, whether they're listed on our website or not, every March when we do India Giving Day, or I don't know, we could change the date, but March seems to work pretty well. That every March they announce the largest gift in their history. Like last year we announced $4 million for this, which was the largest in our history. Well, this year we're announcing $5 million. And a couple of groups have actually done that. Arogya World, which works on diabetes prevention in India, announced a $1.1 million grant last year, largest in their history on India Giving Day. It was very exciting. That was contributed to our $5.5 million total. So in order to help make that happen, I organize a monthly webinar on securing major and mega gifts. So major gifts for like an organization like Grameen Foundation I used to run was $25,000 and above. For a small organization, it might be $1,000 and above, whatever it is for you. Mega gifts is, I usually think of it as $1 million and above, so I do a monthly kind of participatory training about how do you secure those gifts, especially in the US market. It's not that different in India, but it's a little different. So if you'd like to be part of that, invited to that monthly webinar, it takes place at 11 a.m., usually on a Wednesday in the middle of the week. So it's kind of late India time, but not super late. Let me know. We'll invite you. We'll send you and you don't have to come every month, but you come.
Sign up, Alex.
What? Yeah.
We
Okay.
definitely want to sign up.
Great. Well, I'll invite you, and you can pass on the invitation to anyone, or people can contact me directly. So that's one thing. It's I mean, I've raised about $300 million in my career for philanthropic causes as the CEO, and I'm out, more in a couple other organizations I've served as board chair. There are people that do that every year. I don't want to say that that's like unprecedented amount, but it's a decent amount. And I've learned a lot in the process. And 2 of my books are about what I've learned in that process. And so there's also a lot of pieces about thought leadership about philanthropy on our website. Check them out. You may find them useful to circulate amongst your friends in the US, your friends in India. One of the things we find is that Indian Americans in the US, without wanting to seem patronizing or, there's a feeling that there's a need to educate donors about like philanthropy, like how to be a good philanthropist, without telling them that like they're dumb, right? I mean, that's, and so we've been debating. We finally, after a year and a half of negotiation, we came up with a guidelines for good philanthropy. And now we fought over every word. It was, but we ultimately came out with something we're really happy with. And so if you're looking as a resource to kind of, to basically help educate your donors about how to be better philanthropists based on their priorities and to be more supportive of your priorities, I'll put that in the chat. And it's just one of many pieces of thought leadership. We come out with lots of articles about India Giving Day. They're starting to come out. I'm usually interviewed by the Press Trust of India, so that goes out to a lot of newspapers. You'll start seeing things coming out in India and the US about this, because we just want to grow this awareness of the opportunities to do good and to feel meaningful through philanthropy and benefiting organizations like the ones on our website and like the ones that you run. So just check out our website. There's a lot there, and their videos, their trainings. We're very into getting youth involved in philanthropy, because if it's only something done by men in their 50s and 60s and 70s, it's like the sustainability isn't there. So how do you get young people, second and third generation? I won't go into all that, except the youth essay competition is a part of that. But so what else? Let's hear some other questions. Maybe could you? I'm looking for this link. Maybe Alexi, could you read a question or two, or that have come up?
Sure. Here's one. How do you see the political climate of the US influencing Indian diaspora philanthropy this year?
Um, the honest answer is, here we go. I don't know, and I don't really think it's going to influence it that much. Um, I think that a larger factor is the economic situation in India, because while some donors, like the ones, we have a national steering committee for India Giving Day, people that are, like billionaires or close. And for them, it's just all these things don't really matter. They just have so much money that they can just give if they want to and not give if they don't. But for people that are it's more discretionary. They're giving not out of their assets, but out of their income. If the economy goes down, regardless of who's in charge running the country, philanthropy is going to stagnate or go down a little bit. If the economy is doing great, it is in the U.S. It's doing quite well right now. Then I think it will continue. There is a desire among some in philanthropists in the U.S. to give more in their local communities to national and international issues. A lot of Indian Americans gave to the political campaigns in the U.S., but that's over now. It'll start heating up in about a year and a half when we have midterm elections. But that drain on donors is gone, and as long as the economy stays pretty good, and until the next political campaigns come, I think that Indian American philanthropy overall and to India will remain strong, regardless of the fact that we've had a change of administration.
Want to echo that, Alex. It's really positive to hear that, and we're also hoping for that outcome to happen. There's some very good analysis from Asia Asia Society as well, highlighting the positive relationship between India and the US. So to your point, I think that's more important with the economy than what's happening in the US specifically, right?
Okay, now I'm back. What will be the best platforms or channels for reaching potential U.S. donors? I think that, when organizations ask me, because I do some consulting for fundraising and some organizations that have nothing to do with India, but many of them do, and they say, where can I find donors? And in fact, I actually, by the way, just wrote a 2-part series on our blog about 12 myths around major donor fundraising for causes in India. And you can check that out. I won't put it I've already put too many things in the chat. And, where do I find the next major donor? I say the most likely place for you to find it is through your existing major donors, however you define them. Because, when someone says, who's wealthy enough to give you $10,000, when they introduce you to 2 or 3 people with similar giving capability, their skepticism, their kind of caution is way down because they're open. Someone they trust has recommended you, and they're going to listen to you. Whereas if you don't have that connection and you just kind of reach them through some social media platform, something like that, it's just much less. They're going to be much more like what kind of skeptical. So whatever your donor base is in the U.S. or even just friends of yours, even if it's just 5 people, your most likely place to find new donors is through introductions of those 5 people to another 5 people, and then 10, and then it grows like that. So it's not the only place, but it's the most likely place. The other thing is that for those of you that have visas and want to travel to the U.S., there are a couple of conferences that happen in the U.S. around philanthropy, a couple of them related to particularly philanthropy to India. Dasra hosts one in September. In Diaspora hosts one, and we're going to be managing that with them going forward, most likely. So, bumping into someone at a conference, even if you're not there as a speaker, and just has some of the best. I mean, our whole relationship with the MacArthur Foundation came from, I heard one of Yamini Mishra, their new country director, speak, and I went up to her afterwards, gave her my business card. I said, "Can we talk?" And later it developed into a really dynamic relationship. So, they're online, kind of groups and so forth around philanthropy to India, but that more personal contact, personal recommendations. And that's why I always say, even if you have half a dozen friends in the U.S. who've given you money, ask them if they'll host some little gathering for you on India Giving Day or some other time if that makes more sense for them. And it doesn't have to be big, and it just give them some talking points about how to do that. Maybe you can join their thing remotely through Zoom or something, and just people say, wow, that sounds like you're doing really good work. I don't have a lot of money to more commit this year, but I'll give you X. Maybe I'll do more next year. That's how you build this program. And again, if you can use the India Giving Day, maybe convene, some of your folks in New York based on this generous offer that we just heard from Lee. Maybe there's a way to, in New York, for all of you to invite your New York donors to come together in one place, and I would go to that. I mean, that would be fun. I'm always looking to excuses to go to New York, my hometown anyway. So, but really the platform, the platform, I would say it's not really a platform, is just word of mouth. When I wrote my first book, the first edition of my first book, I asked the people at Random House, I said, how do books get sold? Like, is it about getting on the Today Show, which is a popular morning TV show here? Was it about getting a book review in the New York Times? And they said, those help. But the single thing that sells books is word of mouth, is people saying to their friends, this book, I read this book, Alex Counts wrote it. It's good. People like, shoot, I'll buy it. I'll read it. And you just, the extent to which there's word of mouth about your organization, and you can kind of grow that slowly, that's how you gain more donors of all levels: youth donors, small donors, medium donors, large donors. Not 100%, but the dominant amount. And so how do you motivate your donors to go from being passive donors to active evangelists? Within their comfort zone. Introverts communicate one way, extroverts another way. That's really how you want to grow it. And again, I've put out different resources to help guide that process of creating evangelists, and I can share those with you. But that's my short answer. Not so short answer.
Great answer. There's 2 more questions, Alex. Is there potential for long-term impact funding?
Yeah, long-term. So one of the things, if you look at our, I think I understand what you mean, but if I answer a different question than you asked, you can type it a different way. But let me just I think a lot of donors, when they're kind of getting into big donors, they basically look at it in a kind of a crude, very simple way, which is that I'm trying to get a project done, and I want to fund an organization. And in fact, I'm also going to have organizations compete for my money, and who can offer me the to do the most for the smallest amount of money for them. And so that project-based funding, and where you see the nonprofit is almost like a middleman who's you want to limit their cut, limit their what they and it's you want to get it. And people that come from a business background and trying to it kind of makes sense. But one of the points in our philanthropy best practices that I put in the chat is we urge donors to start to think about donating not to projects, but to build institutions, to just say, you know what, your organization is doing some really good work right now and on issues that interest me. But you know what? In 5 or 10 years, there will be issues that don't even exist now that will need to be dealt with, that this organization, if we can invest in its organization's capabilities, ability to learn, ability to build a high-performing team, they will be in place to deal with issues that don't even maybe exist now. So I'm not totally opposed to restricted grants, but I really like to see organizations, donors, put their money at the disposal of an organization over multiple years, and to give them great discretion into how to use it, and not to try to limit what they can spend on their own internal capacity. So when I'm a donor, I'm saying not how do I implement an effective project, but how do I help build an effective organization for the long term. Now that's an education process. And sometimes a donor doesn't start there. They start with, well, I'll give you money for this project. Don't spend anything on any other thing other than the project. And you can only spend 5% on your overhead. Well, I don't think that's a great form of philanthropy, but it's better than nothing. So implement that project effectively, and then slowly they may see that backing you as an organization more than the project is probably like a higher form of philanthropy, a more effective form of philanthropy. But people get there at their own pace, and we're trying to provide some resources to help do that. And so, there are some wonderful things out there that might, Ingrid Srinath, for example, who's speaking at our March 6th webinar. She's part of something called Co-Impact, where they're trying to provide large, unrestricted grants to people doing good work, and millions and millions of dollars. Several of our organizations in IPA, the Planet Read and Project Echo, have been benefited from that, and it's great. Mackenzie Scott has been giving money, the ex-wife of Jeff Bezos, using this kind of approach. So there are other trends in the negative direction, but there's some very good trends in terms of that more long-term impact funding, institution building function. It's really about donor education, about meeting people where they're at, but having a vision for how they'll grow their philanthropy idea over time, in partnership with your organization.
Also, just quickly to add to that, Alex, I mean, the whole model of American Friends Fund is unrestricted funding, right? So, of course, the volume is sometimes small, sometimes large, but I think it's the whole idea about diversifying your funding sources. You have the unrestricted grants; they might be million grants to grow certain key projects. You also have unrestricted funding coming from different sources. So, yeah,
Yeah, so maybe in your case, it can only be unrestricted, and I think that's healthy. But in general, a lot of people who negotiate directly with donors without an intermediary, the donors want to kind of impose a project framework, and again, not bad, but I just don't think the best form of philanthropy. In terms of the fundraising methodology. Basically, it's really threefold. First of all, the events are meant to just kind of educate donors for the long term. If they make a donation that day, fine, but it's really about just building that commitment. We have a peer-to-peer fundraising thing, which is to try to get youth involved and bringing in new small donors to organizations. You can, since you're not listed on our website, unless you are, you can't use our website, but there are many peer-to-peer fundraising models where you can just set up people, especially young people, tech savvy people, to set up a little campaign to raise money for your organization. You look into that. We're trying to use social media to bring people to get excited about philanthropy and about sharing about their lessons around philanthropy. And we just try to have a lot of buzz, especially in those, the 2 weeks before India Giving Day, just around what is possible through philanthropy. And so we've been doing that. We try to incentivize, the announcement of major gifts through India Giving Day, and try to kind of have a sense of camaraderie, that when someone announces a major gift, other nonprofits, rather than feel like that it's a problem for them, like, oh, they got money, we didn't, but rather to create a sense of team among the nonprofit community, that, okay, they got a big grant, good for them, they're doing good work, hopefully we'll get some as well. And so that sense of, that kind of culture of teamwork, of we're all in this together. A victory for any of us is a victory for all of us. That's kind of part of the philosophy that emanates, not more of this kind of competitive mindset. And someone asked about your why. So I talked about the why of starting India Philanthropy Alliance, because I saw a need to do more kind of that more collaborative and among the mindset amongst there. But my own why, honestly, I don't want to get too, when I was a junior in high school, I saw the movie Gandhi, and it really touched me very deeply. Now, that movie, I've seen it 15 times. I've read, I mean, it's not a perfect movie, but it's a really still a great movie, and it just touched something deep in that moment in my life. And I was like, I like if Gandhi was still alive, I would just go to India and I'd throw myself at his feet. I'd say, Master, tell me how to serve. Like, but unfortunately, he wasn't alive, and I began a kind of a process. How can I find a modern day Gandhi that I can work with? And that it didn't take me too long to figure out that Muhammad Yunus, the future Nobel Peace Prize laureate from Bangladesh, was a kind of a modern day Gandhi. And I started partnering with him really in 1988, 1987, and I'm still doing it to this day. I got a message from him yesterday. And as you know, he's the interim prime minister of Bangladesh, which was kind of a shock when that happened last August, but that's a whole other story. But really, and so then I just became super impressed with what he was doing. I mean, for me, India and Bangladesh are like the Silicon Valley of social entrepreneurship in the world. I mean, I've never seen so many high quality nonprofits, social enterprises in India and Bangladesh. I mean, it's just remarkable. I mean, just the list, like in some countries, the list is like 6. And like in India and Bangladesh, it's like in the hundreds of like high quality, it's just amazing. Right. And so, but anyway, I've, as I kind of got into this whole space, I just kind of fell in love with India and Bangladesh. I've also been to Pakistan, and I have some good contacts there, but it's mainly been India and Bangladesh. And I just continue to be inspired by Muhammad Yunus and people he's introduced me to in many of them in India. And it was just because, again, I just, that impressionable moment when I saw that movie on Gandhi, that idealism that life can be about a life of contribution, a life of building bridges, a life of setting a good moral example, as best you can do. It just touched me, and that's really been my emanating force ever since. Have I made mistakes? Do I have flaws and weaknesses as a human being? Of course I do. But that has remained my North Star. And it was coming out of Mahatma Gandhi, and a movie I saw about him remains a force that propels me to this day.
Great. I think on that point, I think we can close with this last question. Are there any specific platforms of social media that they can tag you in campaigns for India Giving Day?
Yeah. So the ones that I'm most active on, I'm a product of the 20th century. I'm still getting tech savvy, but we're very active on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, and LinkedIn. I think we're active on TikTok, but you can't access that in India, so it doesn't really matter. And its status in the U.S. is open to question now. But those 4, so just look for the India Philanthropy Alliance, and just kind of build on those, and just tell your story. Just saying, we're joining. Again, you don't need permission. You have my permission. You're part of this movement. You're all in. So just say you can just go onto Facebook and say we are joining this movement of India Giving Day in the U.S. and mobilizing our friends there. And we want to share this nice post that we have a kind of a PR firm called the Gutenberg Group, kind of based in New York, but with a lot of their people in India. They're terrific and really affordable, and they do high quality kind of things on those 4 platforms that you'll just see coming out every day now. And just build on those, but tell your own story, and tell the story of why the people should support you and why you're part of this movement. And those 4 are the main ones for us.
Great. Thank you so much, Alex. So I know we are at time now, actually a little bit over, but Lee, you might want to close the session, and then we will just have some reminders, and then we will wrap it up.
Okay.
Well, Alex, I just want to say thank you so much for your generosity of time, of expertise, of knowledge, and really openly sharing so much insight. I'm learning a lot through this session, really inspired as well. So I hope everyone attending also equally feel inspired and having some good ideas, but really taking up on Alex's practical recommendations and offers to even take on to the campaign and all of that. So really, really thank you for that. I think just to our partners, like I mentioned, this is the first of hopefully many to come. This year, we are really focusing on, creating more meaningful and impactful partnerships with ecosystem partners like Alex, like a few other folks who have complementary expertise to help our partners to grow and thrive all together. So watch out for those. Alexis is flashing a few things on her screen in terms of date. And just to echo the last point Alex mentioned about social media, the first thing you might want to do is to also link your every.org fundraising page of your organization, because that allows your US donors to give directly. And that's a great way to create these kind of campaigns. And to Alex's point, your supporters, sorry, you can hear my kids coming back. Your supporters can also create campaigns on your behalf. So some of what Alex's recommendations can be executed on every.org. And we have a webinar by every.org coming up on February 24th. Alexi will be sharing those details as a follow-up.
Yes, that's right. I was trying to figure out.
6 a.m. today, so we really appreciate of your time.
Right. Thank you so much. And these are just the dates to remember for upcoming webinars by Myriad USA. And we will certainly be following up with links for you to register to these upcoming webinars. So watch out for that in the next coming days. And so thank you again so much for joining us. And I hope that you had found this a very insightful and inspiring session with Alex Counts. And I'm hoping that you will be joining us in our future learning sessions. So again, thank you so much and hope to hear from you again soon.
And if you don't hear from us in the next few months, please check your junk mail, because we realized some of the mail teams coming from us might fall into the junk mails. So we look forward to meeting everyone again. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.